Most people open their mouths and immediately surrender. Every word they speak leaks weakness. Every sentence begs for approval. Every pause screams uncertainty. And they have no idea they're doing it. But there was once a class of warriors, men who could end a conflict with a single sentence. Men who spoke so rarely and so precisely that when their voice entered a room, the room changed. They were the samurai. And their code of speech, the way they wielded language like a blade, is the most dangerous communication framework ever developed, and it has almost nothing to do with what you think. By the end of this audiobook, you will speak differently. You will be heard differently. But I need to warn you about something first, because the third principle of samurai speech, the one most people will never accept, is the one that changes everything, if you can stomach it. Chapter 1. Stop speaking like a servant. A samurai walks into a negotiation chamber, tatami mats, incense in the air, a feudal lord seated above him, guards along the walls, no one speaks. The room is tight with silence. The samurai kneels. He waits. The lord studies him. And then the samurai finally opens his mouth. What he said next will come back to it. Because first you need to understand why you would have failed in that room. There are exactly 4 types of weak speech. You're using at least 3 of them daily. And if you entered that chamber speaking the way you speak now, you wouldn't lose slowly. You'd lose instantly. The samurai had a word for people who spoke like that. It roughly translates to mouth corpse. And if they called you that, you didn't recover from it. But here's what most people miss. Weak speech isn't about vocabulary. It's not about grammar. It's not about intelligence. It's about status. The first law of samurai speech isn't about what you say. It's about what you destroy before you speak. We'll get to that. Hold it. Shock line. You are not speaking, you are leaking. Every unnecessary word is a drop of blood in the water. You think talking more clarifies. It doesn't. It exposes. And right now, as you're listening to this, you're probably already doing it. You're probably rehearsing what you'd say to someone tomorrow. Stop that instinct, that need to prepare your words. That is the disease. Identity challenge. Are you trying to be understood, or are you trying to be approved? There's a reason most people talk faster when they're nervous, and it has nothing to do with nerves. It has to do with dominance, or rather, the complete absence of it. Speed is submission. Fewer words, more weight. We'll name all 4 types of weak speech before this chapter ends. But the one that will sting the most, the one you'll resist, is the 4th one. You have a choice. Continue speaking like a servant, or rebuild your identity as someone whose words land like iron. I want you to sit in the next 3 seconds of silence. Just sit in it. That discomfort you just felt, that is exactly why you talk too much. A samurai never shows his neck. Now we begin. Type 1, justification speech. This is when you explain before you're accused. I just wanted to say, I was thinking maybe, sorry, I know you're busy, but you lower yourself before anyone asked you to kneel. Contrarian truth. Politeness is often disguised fear. You don't need their permission. Stop doing. Apologizing before speaking, over-explaining simple decisions, adding softeners to direct statements. Start doing. State. Stop. Let silence carry the rest. Hold eye contact after finishing. Discipline beats emotion. Type 2, permission-seeking questions. Is that okay? Does that make sense? What do you think? Binary command. Either you lead the frame or you enter theirs. Every time you seek validation, you transfer authority. And here's the twist. You think asking more questions makes you look collaborative. In reality, it often signals uncertainty. Logic reversal. The one who asks fewer questions often controls more space. The 3rd and 4th types are worse. And the 4th one is something you probably did today, maybe even in the last hour. But first, imagine this. Your boss calls you into their office right now. Door closes. They say nothing for 10 seconds. What do? If your first instinct is to fill that silence, you just showed your neck. A samurai never shows his neck. Type 3, nervous filling, talking to reduce tension, explaining to ease discomfort. Adding words because silence feels dangerous. This breaks under pressure, hold that. Real-world application, next meeting, speak once. Make it concise. Then stop. Let others wrestle with the silence. Watch how quickly the room recalibrates around you. You are not speaking, you are leaking. Now the fourth type. This is the one you'll resist. Type 4, emotional leakage framed as honesty. I just feel like I'm just being transparent. I wanted to share my thoughts, identity challenge. Do powerful people narrate their emotions in real time, or do they regulate them first? In a moment, the rule flips. You were taught that vulnerability builds trust. Sometimes it does, but uncontrolled expression erodes authority. Logic reversal. The more you expose impulsively, the less people trust your stability. The pattern ends with you. Stop doing. Processing emotions out loud in high-stakes moments, talking to relieve anxiety, explaining your intent after every statement. Start doing. Feel it. Contain it. Speak only what moves the outcome. Choose silence as a weapon. Decide. Commit. Repeat. Now we return to the chamber, the samurai kneeling before the Lord, the silence stretching. The Lord finally says, "Why should I trust you?" The samurai responds with one sentence. No justification, no apology, no emotional spill. I have already decided. That was it. No elaboration. Because the first law of samurai speech isn't about what you say. It's about what you destroy before you speak. You destroy the need to be liked. You destroy the urge to fill silence. You destroy the instinct to justify. Fewer words, more weight. But here's the part you're not ready for. Silence alone doesn't create authority. Anyone can shut up. Very few can structure speech so that every word tightens control. And in the next chapter, you're going to learn something that will feel deeply uncomfortable. The samurai didn't just avoid weak speech. They practiced deliberate withholding. Most communication experts tell you to share more, express more, be more open. The samurai did the exact opposite. And they were more respected, more feared, and more trusted than anyone in the room. Now you can hear weak speech everywhere. You can hear it in yourself. Good. That disgust you feel right now, that's useful. Because in the next chapter, I'm going to hand you the first blade. And when you learn how to withhold correctly, you'll realize something unsettling. You've never actually been in control of a conversation in your life. Chapter 2. Master the blade of silence. The feudal lord made his offer. Gold, land, protection. Every eye in the chamber shifted to the samurai. He was expected to respond immediately. That was the ritual. Instead, he did something no one in that room expected. And it wasn't what he said. It was what he refused to say. We'll finish this story in a moment because you need the framework first. Otherwise, you'll miss why it worked. There are 3 types of silence. Only one commands respect. The other 2 will destroy your credibility faster than weak speech ever could. But here's what most people miss. Silence is not empty. Silence is loaded. The samurai trained in silence the way they trained with the sword. Literal drills, hours of practice. There was a specific exercise, and it's one you can do starting tonight. Hold that. The reason silence works is neurological. When you stop speaking, something happens in the other person's brain that they cannot control. We'll break that down in a minute. Shock line. Your addiction to talking is a fear response. You think silence is awkward. It is. It's a dominance vacuum, and whoever tolerates it longer owns the room. Studies in negotiation psychology have shown that the person who speaks first after a proposal is made loses an average of 14% more value in the deal. 14%. Because of one moment of discomfort they couldn't tolerate. Contrarian truth. The need to respond quickly is not intelligence. It's insecurity. You have a choice. Relieve tension or control it. Now the 3 types. Type 1, anxious silence. This is when you go quiet because you're afraid, your body shrinks, your eyes drop, you hope no one notices you. This silence screams weakness. Type 2, manipulative silence. You go quiet to punish, to guilt, to create drama. This silence feels heavy but not powerful. It erodes trust. Both of these break under pressure. Hold that. The third type is different. Command silence. And it requires one specific internal shift. It's not about counting seconds. It's about what you believe about yourself while you're quiet. Identity challenge. When you stop speaking, do you feel exposed or do you feel in control? That answer determines everything. Now the neurological mechanism. When you stop speaking after making a statement, the other person's brain enters prediction mode. It searches for completion. It wants closure. Unfinished loops create cognitive tension. And the human mind will work to resolve that tension, often by conceding, explaining, or filling the gap for you. Logic reversal. The less you say, the more they reveal. Silence is not empty. Silence is loaded. Real-world challenge. Tomorrow, just once, someone will ask you a question. Instead of answering immediately, wait 4 full seconds. Just 4. Watch what happens to their face. Watch how they lean in. That lean, that's respect being born. Binary command. Either you master the pause or you will always chase approval. Now let's define command silence fully. Command silence is anchored in certainty. You are not waiting for permission. You are not searching for better words. You have already decided. Discipline beats emotion. When you speak, you finish your sentence. Then you stop. No upward inflection, no nervous smile, no filler. Speak less, mean more. Identity challenge. Are you quiet because you're unsure, or quiet because you know you don't need to prove anything? The blade you don't draw is the blade they fear most. Now the samurai training exercise. They would sit across from one another. One would ask a direct, even confrontational question. The other would respond in a single sentence. Then hold eye contact in complete silence. No flinch, no adjustment, no explanation. Minutes sometimes passed. The goal wasn't endurance, it was identity reconstruction. You are not speaking, you are containing. The pattern ends with you, now back to the chamber. The feudal lord made his offer, the samurai listened, and then he said nothing. 1 second. 3 seconds, 5, the air thickened, advisors shifted, the guards stiffened, the lord leaned forward, and then he improved the offer, unprompted, more land, better terms. Because the silence forced him to negotiate against himself. But that's not the real lesson. The real lesson is what happened after. That night, the lord told his advisors something about the samurai. He didn't say he was persuasive. He didn't say he was intelligent. He said, he is not a man who needs. Let that land. Reputation is not built on how much you say. It's built on what you refuse to chase. And what the Lord said next, we'll return to that in chapter 5. Because it connects to something about reputation that will reframe everything you think you know about status. For now, understand this. Silence is not the absence of communication. It is concentrated communication. Stop doing, answering immediately, filling gaps with nervous words, smiling to soften your pause. Start doing, finish, stop, hold eye contact. Let them move first. You don't need their permission. Decide, commit, repeat. But here's the problem. Silence alone isn't enough. There comes a moment when the silence must break. And this is where most people collapse. They hold the pause beautifully, build the tension perfectly, and then they open their mouth and release a flood of mediocre, unfocused, powerless words. The samurai had a term for the moment speech begins. They called it the cut, because when a samurai finally spoke, his words were supposed to land like a sword strike, precise, irreversible, final. Chapter 3 is about how to cut. And this is where we reach the third principle, the one I warned you about at the very beginning. Chapter 3. Cut with your words, the third principle. I told you at the beginning that the third principle would be the hardest to accept. Here it is. But before I say it, I need to tell you about a samurai named Yamamoto Tsunetomo and something he wrote in Hagakure that was so controversial it was suppressed for over 100 years. Hold that tension, because the third principle has 3 layers. The surface layer sounds obvious. The middle layer sounds difficult. The deepest layer will make you question every relationship you've ever had. Now listen carefully. Tsunetomo wrote that a warrior must make decisions as if already dead, not reckless, not emotional. Dead to approval, dead to reputation management, dead to the need to be liked. Identity mirror. Think about the last time you softened your language to avoid making someone uncomfortable. The last time you said, "I think maybe," instead of what you actually meant. You know exactly when it was. You can feel it right now. That moment, that flinch, that is what the samurai spent their entire lives training to eliminate. The surface layer of the third principle is this: stop people-pleasing. Obvious. But here's what most people miss. You think people-pleasing is kindness. It's not. It's fear dressed as politeness. A samurai does not ask permission to speak the truth. Now the middle layer. Tsunetomo diagnosed something 300 years ago that describes you today. He observed that most men fear social death more than physical death. Read that again. Social rejection feels like annihilation. So you hedge, you soften, you dilute. Contrarian truth: the more you try to preserve connection, the weaker your presence becomes. Discipline beats emotion. Now the middle layer of the principle. You must accept that clarity will cost you. You will lose certain people. You will make some uncomfortable. You will not be universally liked. This breaks under pressure. Hold that. Because the deepest layer is coming. Here, what no one tells you about being liked. The people who are most liked are not the people who try to be liked. They are the people who are willing to be disliked. Wrap your mind around that. Logic reversal: approval is a byproduct of indifference to approval. You have a choice: chase comfort or command respect. Now the deepest layer. This is the real third principle. You must be willing to be misunderstood in the short term to be respected in the long term. Let that hit. Most of your weak speech is not about kindness. It's about controlling how others perceive you in the moment. Identity challenge. Are you speaking to express truth or to manage perception? Because those are not the same. Cut clean or stay silent. If your words are shaped to prevent discomfort, they will never carry weight. The flinch is the enemy. Kill the flinch. There is a specific vocal technique the samurai used that embodies this principle physically. It changes the way your voice sounds in under 48 hours. But first, understand the internal shift. You must detach from the outcome of being liked, not from the outcome of the negotiation, not from the mission, from the emotional outcome of approval. Binary command: either you protect your image or you protect your integrity. You cannot do both. Stop hedging. Stop qualifying. Stop apologizing before you've done anything wrong. Stop asking permission to have your own opinion. Stop. Just stop. From this moment forward, every sentence you speak either cuts clean or it doesn't leave your mouth. Now the vocal technique. Samurai speech began lower than normal conversational tone. They would deliberately drop their pitch at the start of a sentence and slow the first 3 words. Why? Because pace signals certainty, high speed signals anxiety, rising pitch signals doubt. When you lower your tone and slow your entry, you communicate one thing: I am not negotiating my right to speak. Real-world application. Next time you disagree with someone, do this. Pause. Inhale once. Lower your voice slightly. Then say, "No, that's not correct." Stop. Do not justify immediately. Let the silence absorb the impact. Silence is not empty. Silence is loaded. The blade you don't draw is the blade they fear most. And when you do draw it, cut clean. Now we close the loop. The third principle most people will never accept is simple. You must be willing to be disliked. Not cruel, not arrogant but immovable in truth. The pattern ends with you. Decide, commit, repeat. But here's the part that will test you. Knowing this principle is easy in isolation. Executing it when your body floods with adrenaline is different. Because there is a moment in every important exchange where your nervous system will revolt. Your voice will want to rise. Your words will want to multiply. Your instinct will scream, explain yourself, and that is where most people collapse. Chapter 4. Command the room before you open your mouth. A samurai once ended a duel without drawing his sword. The challenger stormed into the room, hand on hilt, ready to kill. The samurai didn't reach for his weapon. He walked in. He stood in a specific way. He breathed in a specific pattern. And the man who had come to kill him sat down. What did he do? It's simpler than you think. And by the end of this chapter, you'll be able to do it too. But first, you need to understand the science behind why your body is currently broadcasting submission, even when you don't feel submissive. There are 5 body signals that instantly mark you as subordinate. You're probably doing at least 3 right now. Your body speaks before your mouth opens. The samurai had a breathing method that roughly translates to belly of iron. It can be learned in under 5 minutes, and it changes your vocal tone immediately. Hold that. The reason most people can't hold eye contact isn't shyness. It's something much deeper and much more fixable. Shock line. You don't lose authority when you speak. You lose it when you enter the room. Physical instruction. Right now, wherever you are, drop your shoulders 2 inches. Let them fall. Now breathe into your stomach, not your chest. Slow inhale. Low, feel the difference. That is the difference between a person who gets interrupted and a person who never gets interrupted. You just changed your command frequency. Settle your frame. Settle the room. Now the 5 subordinate signals. First, elevated shoulders, tension creeps upward, neck tight, frame compressed. Second, chest breathing, fast, shallow, signals threat response. Third, scanning eyes. You look around rapidly, seeking cues, seeking approval. These 3 alone will undercut every strong word you've trained. But here's what most people miss. The 4th and 5th signals feel polite, and that's exactly the problem. In feudal Japan, a samurai could assess another warrior's level before a duel began, by how he entered the room, how he sat, where he placed his hands. Modern behavioral psychology confirms the same thing. Dominance assessments form in under 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Before you speak, the room has already decided whether to listen. Contrarian truth. Politeness often looks like submission when embodied poorly. Now signal 4. Over-nodding. You nod repeatedly while others speak, telegraphing agreement before you've evaluated. Signal 5. Shrinking posture while seated, leaning back too far or collapsing forward. Either way, you reduce your physical footprint. Identity challenge. When you walk into a room, do you occupy space or apologize for it? You have a choice. Contract or expand with control. Now the breathing technique. Belly of iron. Place one hand lightly on your abdomen. Inhale so the stomach expands, not the chest. 4 seconds in. 2-second hold. 6 seconds out. Slow, heavy, silent. Do this for 1 minute before any important interaction. Your voice will drop naturally. Your pace will slow. Your nervous system will recalibrate. Discipline beats emotion. Command is not performed. Command is inhabited, but there's one more element. And once you hear it, you will see it everywhere. It's speed. Most insecure people move fast. Fast gestures, fast steps, fast transitions. They are trying to outrun judgment. Logic reversal, slowness signals surplus. Move 15% slower than you think you should. Sit slower, turn slower, reach slower. This breaks under pressure, hold that. Because the moment tension rises, your instinct will be to speed up. Binary command, either you master your tempo, or your tempo masters you. Real-world application. Tomorrow, enter your workplace 15% slower. Place your bag down deliberately. Sit without adjusting 5 times. Make one steady glance across the room. Say nothing. Watch who looks at you first. Your body speaks before your mouth opens. Now return to the duel. The challenger entered with sharp steps and flared breath. The samurai entered already settled. Shoulders down, breath low. Chin level, hands visible, relaxed. He stood still, not rigid, still. The challenger's nervous system searched for threat cues, found none, found stability instead. And instability destabilizes itself. The challenger sat down. No sword drawn, no voice raised, that is command. Scenario replay. Remember the boss's office from Chapter 1, closed door. 10 seconds of silence. Now replay it. You walk in, shoulders settled, breathing low, eyes steady. You sit, you don't speak first, you don't fidget, you don't perform calmness, you are calm. Feel the difference. That's not confidence. Confidence hopes for respect. Command doesn't require it. Identity challenge. Are you acting calm or are you structurally calm? The pattern ends with you. Stop doing. Chest breathing under pressure, over-nodding for approval, speeding up. When tension rises, shrinking your physical presence, start doing. Belly breathing before speaking, slower movements, stillness. After you sit, eye contact. That doesn't dart, settle your frame. Settle the room, decide, commit, repeat. Now your body is set, your silence is loaded. Your words are ready to cut, but there's a dimension we haven't touched. Remember what the feudal lord said in Chapter 2. That man does not speak to be heard, he speaks to be remembered. Chapter 5. Forge the echo blade, words that haunt. In Chapter 2, the feudal lord said this about the samurai. That man does not speak to be heard, he speaks to be remembered. That was not a compliment, it was a warning. Because remembered words shape rooms long after you leave them. Now listen carefully. The echo blade has 4 forging techniques. 4 ways to construct a sentence, so that it buries itself in someone's memory and refuses to leave. The 4th technique is the most powerful, and it's the one Miyamoto Musashi used in the most famous line ever attributed to a samurai. But we start with the first, because each technique builds on the last. Miss one and the blade bends. The first technique is compression. Ancient Japanese poets understood it. Modern advertising rediscovered it 300 years later. Here's the principle. A paragraph is forgotten. A blade is remembered. Compression means removing every unnecessary word until only impact remains. But here's what most people miss. They don't talk too little. They talk too much to be quotable. There's a neurological reason for this. Compressed language forces the brain to complete patterns. Long-winded speech lulls the mind. Short, dense phrasing activates it. Live demonstration. Weak version, I think it's important to be honest even when it's hard. Echo blade version, hard truths heal, soft lies kill. Feel the difference, same idea, different weapon. One is a paragraph, the other is a scar. Forge your words or they will rust in the air. Technique 2, counterintuitive, make the listener do the work. The most memorable statements are not fully explained. They are almost explained. Logic reversal, the less you clarify, the more they internalize. Example. Weak, you need discipline to succeed in life. Echo blade, discipline decides. 2 words. It invites interpretation. It creates mental participation. Identity challenge. Are you trying to eliminate ambiguity or create engagement? Speak to be remembered, not merely to be heard. Technique 3. This is where good communicators separate from legends. It's called the turn. You embed contradiction inside one sentence. Tension creates stickiness. Example, be ruthless with your habits. Gentle with your future. Opposites, balanced. Unforgettable, this breaks under pressure, hold that. Because if you hedge, the turn collapses. Listener challenge, pause this for 30 seconds. Think of the most important thing you believe. Now strip it down. Remove every unnecessary word. Make it short enough to fit on a blade. That sentence, the one you just forged, is the beginning of your verbal signature. A samurai was known by his sword. You will be known by your sentences. You have a choice. Speak filler or speak legacy. Now the fourth technique, Musashi's technique. It requires compression. It requires participation. It requires the turn all at once. Binary command: either your words survive without you, or they die the moment you stop talking. Technique 4, irreducible finality. A sentence that feels complete. No qualifier, no hedge. No emotional leak, total closure. We build toward it like this. Compression short. Participation leaves space for thought. Turn embeds tension. Now watch, historical revelation. Musashi's most famous line, "Do nothing that is of no use." 6 words, no apology, no explanation, quoted for 400 years, 400. Why? Compression, 6 words. Participation, what counts as no use? You decide, turn, doing nothing of no use. It folds in on itself. Irreducible, final, a paragraph is forgotten, a blade is remembered. Direct accusation, right now your sentences are dissolving in the air because you're afraid to end them cleanly. You add qualifiers, you add smiles, you soften impact. Stop. Cut clean or stay silent. Real-world application. Next time you give advice, compress it to one line. Instead of explaining for 5 minutes, end with a blade. Instead of, you should probably focus more on consistency if you want results. Say, consistency compounds. Stop. Let it land. Discipline beats emotion. Identity shift framing. You are no longer someone who talks to fill space. You are someone who forges language. The pattern ends with you. But here, the warning. Echo blades amplify whatever you put into them. If your thinking is shallow, your blades will be sharp and empty. If your intent is ego, your words will cut but not build. And this is where power turns dangerous. Because there is a difference between a samurai who commands respect and a tyrant who demands it. You now know how to forge words that haunt. But there is a shadow side to this skill. A moment when the blade must stay sheathed. A moment when speaking, even brilliantly, weakens you. Chapter 6. Sheathe the blade, the art of strategic yielding. A samurai once lost everything. Not because he was weak, because he was too sharp. He cut every conversation, won every exchange, corrected every mistake, silenced every opponent. And one morning he woke up alone. Retainers gone, allies distant. His lord reassigned him to a post so remote it was exile in everything but name. He had won every battle of words and lost the only war that mattered. What went wrong? And how did another samurai, using the exact same principles you've learned, build an alliance powerful enough to reshape Japanese history? The difference came down to a single practice they did every evening. It took less than 5 minutes. But first, understand this. There are 3 situations where cutting will destroy you. 3 moments where the blade must be sheathed. No exceptions. The evening practice had a name that roughly translates to reviewing the sword. A 5-minute conversation audit. Most people have never examined how they spoke during a day. Not once. Strategic yielding has structure. It's not just shutting up. There's a sequence: yield, hold, redirect. And it decided political survival in samurai courts for centuries. Now listen carefully. I know what you're expecting. You're expecting me to tell you to be humble, to listen more, to show empathy. No, that's not what this is. Strategic yielding isn't kindness. It's warfare. It's the deliberate decision to let someone else feel powerful so that you can remain in control of the larger game. A samurai didn't yield because he was soft. He yielded because he was playing longer than everyone else in the room. A samurai plays the long game always. Here is the structure. Yield. You allow the other person to finish completely. No interruption, no correction, no micro-expression of disagreement. Hold. 3 seconds of silence after they finish. Not defensive silence. Stable silence. Redirect. You respond not to their emotion but to the objective. Example, attack, you're wrong. This plan makes no sense. Weak cut, no, you're misunderstanding. Strategic yield, let them finish. Hold, then, what outcome are you most concerned about? You didn't surrender. You shifted terrain, yield the moment, win the war. But here's what most people miss. The difference between the exiled samurai and the empire builder came down to one habit. One. And it happened in the evening, not in the conversation. Notice what I've been doing throughout this audiobook. I haven't just been lecturing. At specific moments, I've paused, asked you to think, given you space to reach conclusions. That is strategic yielding. I'm doing it to you right now, and it's one reason you're still here. Now the evening practice, reviewing the sword. Every night 5 minutes. Ask yourself 3 questions. Where did I cut unnecessarily? Where did I speak to win the moment instead of protect the mission? Where did I fail to redirect? No emotion. No self-criticism, just assessment. Discipline beats emotion. The sharpest blade knows when to rest in its sheath. Now the 3 situations where cutting destroys you. First, when emotion is high and stakes are low, correcting your partner over trivial details. You win the fact, you lose warmth. Second, when someone outranks you in formal hierarchy but not in clarity, cutting them publicly humiliates them. Humiliated power seeks revenge. Third, when trust is still forming. Early relationships cannot survive constant sharpness. This breaks under pressure, hold that, because there's a fourth situation, rare but critical, public attack. When someone tries to dominate you in front of others, your instinct will be to cut immediately. Sometimes you should, but sometimes yielding is more lethal. You let them finish. Hold. Then respond with a question that exposes their instability. Calmly, slowly, the room will see the contrast. Command is not performed. Command is inhabited. Binary command, either you fight for ego or you fight for outcome. You cannot do both. Real-world application. Tomorrow, in one conversation, consciously choose not to correct something minor. Let it pass. Watch the relationship gain stability. You have a choice, short-term victory or long-term position. The exiled samurai never reviewed his sword. He sharpened daily, never reflected. The empire builder did, every evening, 5 minutes. That was the difference. Now I want you to go somewhere uncomfortable. There is someone in your life right now who has been waiting for you to stop cutting, waiting for you to stop performing strength, and just listen, not to respond, not to redirect, just to understand. You know who it is. You can see their face right now. The samurai would call that person the mirror you've been avoiding. The pattern ends with you. Yield the moment. Win the war. Decide. Commit. Repeat. You've learned to cut. You've learned to forge echo blades. You've learned to command rooms. Now you've learned to sheathe. But there's a battlefield we haven't entered. Conflict. Real conflict. Not polite disagreement. Not structured debate. The moment someone comes at you with aggression, with disrespect, with intent to dominate, what do you do then? How does a samurai speak when someone is trying to destroy them with words? Chapter 7 is about verbal combat, and it contains a technique so effective, I genuinely hesitated before including it. Chapter 7. Enter the verbal duel. I want to describe a situation. You're in a meeting. Someone senior to you dismisses your idea publicly, not subtly, openly. They say something like, "That's not going to work and I think you know it." The room goes quiet. Everyone is watching you. What happens in the next 4 seconds determines how every person in that room sees you for the next 4 years. The samurai had a specific response for this exact moment. And it's not what any modern communication book would tell you to do. At exactly 45 seconds into a confrontation, most people are already lost. Why? Because they don't understand this. There are exactly 5 types of verbal attacks. Each requires a different counter. Using the wrong counter makes you look worse than not responding at all. A samurai does not react. A samurai responds. And the counterstrike is always calm. At 1 minute 30, we need to talk about the first weapon. It's called the mirror cut asterisk. It has 3 steps. The first step is the one that feels most wrong, and it's the step that makes the entire technique work. But before I teach it to you, understand something happening inside your body. At 2 minutes 15, your physiology betrays you. Adrenaline dump. Voice pitch rises. Breathing shifts upward into your chest. Your field of vision narrows. You think you're speaking clearly. You're not. The samurai had a 2-second reset. Inhale through the nose. Slow exhale through the mouth. Drop the tongue from the roof. Relax the jaw. 2 seconds. It lowers the pitch. It steadies the eyes. It buys you control. A samurai does not react. A samurai responds. Now I need to warn you. The technique I'm about to teach you is called the mirror cut. This is not defensive. It is an offensive counter. If used incorrectly, it will escalate the situation beyond recovery. I hesitated to include this in the audiobook. I'm teaching it because you've come this far. If you skipped ahead to this chapter, go back. You're not ready. Hash the mirror cut step 1, and this is the part that feels wrong. You agree. Not fully, not submissively, strategically. When they say that's not going to work, you respond, you might be right. Silence. This disarms the attack vector. You've removed the friction they were preparing to push against. Most people argue. You don't. You step aside. That's step 1. Step 2 is where most people fail. It requires you to do something with your voice that feels unnatural. You lower it. Not dramatically, slightly, slower, quieter, measured, because authority is rarely loud. You continue. Can you walk me through which part concerns you most? No defensiveness. No edge. Calm curiosity. Step 3 is the cut. When they explain, and they will, you isolate the weakness in their reasoning. Then you reflect it back. So if I'm understanding correctly, the concern is timeline, not viability. Now the attack has shape. Now it has edges, and edges can be redirected. You've taken their aggression and turned it into structure. You didn't fight. You reframed. That's the mirror cut. The counterstrike is always calm. Rapid scenario cascade. Someone insults your intelligence, mirror cut. Someone takes credit for your work, different technique. We'll cover it in 30 seconds. Someone raises their voice to intimidate you. The samurai had a response that is almost supernaturally effective. 3 situations, 3 weapons. Let's go. Hash when someone takes credit for your work. This is attack type 2, displacement. The amateur response is accusation. The samurai response is illumination. You say, I'm glad that idea resonated. When I first outlined it in last week's draft, I was hoping it would move in this direction. No hostility, just timestamps, specifics, light. You don't attack them, you make the record clear. The room recalibrates. Let them drown in their own echo. Hash when someone raises their voice. This is intimidation. Most people match energy. That's a mistake. You lower yours even further. You slow your breathing. And you say, I want to make sure I understand you. Nothing destabilizes aggression like calm acknowledgement. If they continue escalating, you hold eye contact and say, there's no need to raise your voice. Not as a plea, as a boundary, silence. The counterstrike is always calm. We've covered 3 of the 5 types of attacks. The 4th and 5th are the most dangerous because they don't sound like attacks. They sound like concern. They sound like care. And that's what makes them lethal. Attack type 4, the concern mask. I just worry that this might be too much for you. Translation, I don't see you as capable. The counter. Clarify criteria. What specific capability do you think is required? Force precision. Vagueness is the weapon. Precision is the shield. Attack type 5. The preemptive doubt. I'm just playing devil's advocate. No, they're seeding uncertainty. You respond, I appreciate the angle. What outcome are you trying to prevent? Now they must define their fear. Defined fear shrinks. Undefined fear spreads. A samurai does not react. A samurai responds. And now we come to the most advanced technique in this entire audiobook. Silence. Not stunned silence. Not afraid silence. Chosen silence. Sometimes the most devastating response to a verbal attack is nothing. You look at them. You hold their gaze. You let the words hang in the air. And you let the room watch them drown in the echo of their own aggression. I have seen this end careers. Not yours. Theirs. Because uncontrolled aggression, when unresisted, becomes spectacle. And spectacle destroys credibility. Let them drown in their own echo. Understand this clearly. The goal is not domination. The goal is status preservation with integrity intact. You are not trying to win the room. You are refusing to lose yourself. Silence, speech, the cut, the sheath, the echo blade, the verbal counterstrike. You now have the arsenal. But here is what matters. Techniques do not change you. Identity does. A samurai did not speak powerfully because he learned techniques. He spoke powerfully because he became someone who could not speak any other way. And the final chapter is not about what you say. It is about who you become. It requires one final act. Something the samurai did every morning before the sun rose. Something most people alive today are too distracted, too comfortable, and too afraid to do. Chapter 8. Become the voice they never forget. Every morning before first light, the samurai performed a ritual. It wasn't meditation in the way you're thinking. It wasn't breathing exercises. It wasn't visualization. It was something far more confrontational. They rehearsed their own death. Pause. And it is this practice, more than any sword technique, more than any speech principle, that made them speak the way they did. Because a person who has already accepted the worst outcome of any day has nothing left to protect in any conversation. Let me explain what this means for you practically, right now, in your actual life. At 45 seconds, you might think this is philosophical. It's not. When a samurai imagined the loss of reputation, comfort, position, even life itself, before the sun rose, something extraordinary happened. The ego relaxed. The grasping stopped. And speech became clean. There are 3 shifts that happen in a person who practices this for 30 days. The first shift happens in the first week. The third shift, most people can't describe. They just say, I'm not the same person. At 2 minutes 15, understand this. The connection between death awareness and speech power isn't mystical, it's neurological. When the brain stops protecting ego, it stops generating weak speech automatically. Hesitation softens, over-explaining decreases, approval-seeking dissolves, because what are you protecting? Embarrassment, status, comfort. A samurai who has accepted death fears no conversation. Full circle, remember the first thing I said to you. Most people open their mouths and immediately surrender. You are not most people, not anymore. You've been here learning, practicing, absorbing, while others scroll, skim, and forget. That says something about you, and what it says is this. You were already becoming this person before you pressed play. This audiobook did not create the samurai in you. It woke him up. You are not learning to speak. You are learning to become. Shift 1, internal silence. The first shift happens in week 1. You notice a gap, a space between stimulus and response. Someone challenges you and you don't rush. Someone provokes you and you observe. The gap widens. Inside that gap is choice. Inside that gap is power. A samurai does not react. He responds. And now so do you. Shift 2 is where it becomes visible. Other people begin to notice, but they won't say you're speaking differently. They'll say something else. They'll say you seem different, or you're calm, or I feel like you've really thought this through. They can't identify the mechanism, but they feel the weight behind your words. Because when someone no longer fears loss, their voice stops negotiating for approval. It begins stating reality. The tongue is the most powerful weapon ever forged. Now the installation. Every morning, Before you check your phone, before you speak to anyone, before the world reaches into you, ask one question. If this were my last day, would I waste a single word? That's it. That is the ritual translated for modern life. One question, every morning. Do this for 30 days. You will not need to announce the change. People will respond to it. They won't know why. But you will. A samurai who has accepted death fears no conversation. Shift 3. This one is difficult to describe. Around week 3 or 4, something stabilizes. You stop performing strength. You stop calculating how you're perceived. You stop replaying conversations at night. Your speech becomes shorter, cleaner, more deliberate, and strangely kinder. Because when you no longer speak to defend ego, you can speak to serve truth. This is when identity locks in. You are not trying to sound powerful. You simply are. You are not learning to speak. You are learning to become. There is one final teaching. The samurai gave it only to students who had completed their training. It was one sentence. Before I give it to you, understand something. Everything we covered, the mirror cut, the silence, the echo, the counterstrike, none of it works without this. Without this, techniques become manipulation. With this, techniques become integrity. There's one more story I haven't told you. The samurai from the beginning, the one in the negotiation, the one whose words we followed through this entire journey. He was not a general. He was not famous. He was not born into power. He was a low-ranking retainer, given one opportunity to speak before a lord who could have ignored him. One conversation. That's all he had. He spoke clearly, without flattery, without fear, without excess. He said only what mattered, and he stopped. 50 years later, his descendants were governing a province, not because of his sword, because of his speech, because in that one moment he did not waste a single word. The tongue, wielded correctly, is the most powerful weapon ever forged. Here is the final sentence. The one they gave only when training was complete. Speak as if it costs you something. Pause, because it does. Every word either increases your weight or reduces it. Every sentence either sharpens your edge or dulls it. A samurai who has accepted death fears no conversation, and a person who speaks as if it costs them something becomes unforgettable. You pressed play as one person, you finish as another. Do the ritual tomorrow morning, ask the question, and then walk into your day knowing this. You are not learning to speak. You are learning to become, and the world will hear the difference. You started this audiobook as a person who had never examined how they speak. You're finishing it as someone who can never go back to speaking carelessly. That is the transformation. Not a set of tricks, not a list of tactics, a permanent shift in who you are when you open your mouth. You now carry the blade of silence. You know how to cut with your words and when to sheathe them. You've forged echo blades that will live inside the minds of everyone you speak to. You understand strategic yielding, the long game. You can enter a verbal duel and walk out with your dignity not just intact, but elevated. And you know the morning question, the one that makes all of it possible. If this were my last day, would I waste a single word? Remember, most people open their mouths and immediately surrender. You are no longer most people. You are someone who speaks with the precision, the weight, and the authority of a warrior who has already accepted the consequences of their words before they say them. You don't speak to fill silence. You don't speak to be liked. You don't speak to be comfortable. You speak to be remembered. Now close this audiobook. Walk into the next room. And the next time you open your mouth, cut clean. The tongue is the most powerful weapon ever forged. You now know how to wield it.